Wow, here we are in the book of Daniel. Now here's the chart from last week where I kind of given you different ways to read through the book of Daniel. Last week we started with Daniel 8 where Daniel fainted and he was sick. And then he says, afterward, I rose up and I did the king's business and I was astonished at the vision. But look at this. How many understood it? None. Nobody understood it. Now, Daniel 8 is the last year of Belshazzar. In Daniel 5, he dies. And then the very next day, we see Darius steps up to the plate and he's in charge. And as you see in this chart, Daniel 6, 9, 11, and 12 are all the first year of Darius the Mede. So there's different ways that you can read it, but just know they all happen that first year. And what do we find in Daniel 11? Here, Daniel faints, he's sick, and in Daniel 11:1 from last week, it says, I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. We talked about who is the I and who's the him. And I believe as we read, we'll see that it was the angel Gabriel strengthening Daniel. Now, last week we went through the history of Daniel 11 and Antiochus and all that entailed. I hope you enjoyed. Wasn't that fun last week? That was amazing. Okay, well, we're going to continue because I had to stop in Daniel 11, so we're going to pick it up in verse 36 through 39. It says, and the king will do as he wills. He will exalt who? Himself. And magnify who? Himself above every god. And he's going to speak astonishing things against the God of gods. Now again, we have to remember history does what? Okay, so all of this has already happened, but he's telling us, look at the pattern, be looking for someone who it's all about them. That is the key to decoding the Antichrist when we look at the pattern and say, okay, this is humankind. This is how this type of a leader will come. Okay, and it says he will prosper. Okay, he's going to be successful until the indignation is accomplished. For what is decreed shall be done. Now look at this. He's not going to pay any attention to the gods of his fathers or to the one that is beloved by women. He's not going to pay attention to any other god. But basically, he thinks he's God. He's going to magnify himself above all. Instead, he's going to honor the God of the military, basically, fortresses, instead of gods. A God whom his fathers did not know, he will honor with gold and silver, precious stones, costly gifts. He shall deal with the strongest fortresses with the help of a foreign god. Look at this. Those who acknowledge him, he shall load with honor. He shall make them rulers over many and shall divide the land for a price. That is huge. That is huge. Wow. Talk about this. Whoever acknowledges him, he's going to load with honor. Total flattery. Okay. This is amazing. And those that acknowledge him, he's going to make them the rulers over everybody. And then he's going to divide the land. What land do you think he's talking about? Exactly. That's why Joel says, woe to those that divide or part my land. So this is what we're looking for, is someone who declares it's all about them. He's going to flatter people. He's going to have power. He's going to be prosperous. He's going to have success. And then what he's going to do is he's going to pick those people who acknowledge him as the top dog. He'll let them be the ones who rule over many. And now look at verse 40 through 45. At the time of the end, the king of the south, this is Egypt, will attack him, but the king of the north, that's the Seleucids, will rush upon him like a whirlwind, with chariots and horsemen, with many ships. He'll come into countries and shall overflow and pass through. He'll come into the glorious land. Where's that? Israel. Tens of thousands will fall, but these will be delivered out of his hand. Edom and Moab and the main parts of the Ammonites, in other words, Jordan. He will stretch out his hand against the countries, and the land of Egypt will not escape. He'll become ruler of the treasures of gold and silver, the precious things of Egypt. The Libyans and the Cushites will follow in his train, but news from the east and the north, will alarm him. And he will go out with great fury to destroy and devote many to destruction. Okay, so this says he doesn't care about people. He's going to destroy as many people as he can. And he will pitch his palatial tents between basically the Mediterranean Sea and Mount Zion. That's what this is referring to. The Mediterranean Sea and the Temple Mount. And yet he shall come to his end with no one to help him. Okay, now to chapter 10. Now, if you'll notice, chapter 10 really is the last chapter. It's not, even though chapter 12 is the last chapter in the book, chapter 10 is really the last chapter, but we're going to tie in chapter 12 as well today. So here we go. Daniel 10, 1 through 4. It is now the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia. Now, who knows about what year this is? Does anyone know about when this is? Okay. It's going to be roughly 470, something like that. We know finally in 444 is when Darius, the king of Persia, makes a decree to build up the walls of Jerusalem. Cyrus wasn't concerned about the walls of Jerusalem. He was concerned about the temple. And so that happens a couple of decades earlier. Okay, now watch this. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a word was revealed to Daniel, who is named Belteshazzar. And this word is what? It is true. And it was about a great conflict. And he understood, finally he gets it, at the very end. He understood the word and had understanding of the vision. Okay, it took a while. But how many of you know for us it takes a while too? All right? He finally gets it. He understood the vision. And because he understood the vision, look what happens. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning for how many weeks? Okay, what month was this in? Let's look and see what the Bible says. It says, I was mourning for 3 weeks. I ate no delicacies. No meat or wine even entered my mouth. I didn't anoint myself at all for the full 3 weeks. And on the 24th day of what? What happens in the first month? Passover. Passover is what day? Nisan 14. And then comes unleavened bread, Nisan 15. It lasts for 7 days through Nisan 22. This is now Nisan 24. Of course, he couldn't keep the Passover anyway. He's in Babylon. The temple is destroyed. But think about this. It was 3 weeks during the month of Nisan through Passover that he is mourning. Okay? And look at this. He's on the 24th day of the first month. I was standing on the bank of the great river, which is which river? The Tigris River, and it is Passover. Well, guess what? This morning, I spent some time, and I grabbed Google Images. Okay, you can see in the very bottom corner, there's Baghdad. All right? Well, there's the Euphrates. Here is the Tigris, and you'll notice the Tigris kind of winds its way down right into the Baghdad, which was Babylon. So this is where Daniel was. I don't know if Jill, if you have that little clip or not. Yeah, well. Okay, here it comes. Here it comes. Watch this little video clip here. See if we can play it. But there it is. This is right outside of Babylon. There's the Tigris River. And look what he sees right there at the Tigris River. That's where he was. We'll come back to that. But first, get a load of this. It was the 3rd year of Cyrus, and I told you that's around 470 BC, right? When did Isaiah live? When was Isaiah prophesying? He's around 760 BC. We're talking around 300 years. The United States is a little over 200 years. We're talking Isaiah's prophesying around 300 years before Cyrus was even born. And look at Isaiah. Here's the prophecy by name of Cyrus. Remember last week, Alexandria was shown the, hey, guess what? I don't mean Alexandria. I mean King Alexander the Great. How the Jews showed him how basically he's right there in the book of Daniel. Well, can you imagine when they approached Cyrus and said, look, Isaiah mentioned you by name 300 years ago. Look at this. Isaiah 44:28 through 45:1. Who says of Cyrus, he is my shepherd. He will fulfill all my purpose, unlike Saul. Saying of Jerusalem, she shall be built into the temple. Your foundation shall be laid. It hadn't even been destroyed yet in Isaiah's time. I mean, if you were listening to Isaiah and they were talking about the temple is going to be built, what do you mean? It's already built. What Your foundation will be laid. Thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have grasped, to subdue nations before him, to loosen the belts of kings, to open doors before him, that gates may not be closed. Isn't that amazing? Cyrus by name is mentioned several centuries before he was even born. Now here's the question. Why, in the 3rd year of Cyrus, when Cyrus has already said, let everything be built in the 1st year, why is Daniel mourning? Does anyone know why he is mourning? Well, let's look at what the Bible says. Let's go to Ezra chapter 4, verse 1 through 5. When the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard that the returned exiles were building a temple to the Lord, the God of Israel, they approached Zerubbabel and the heads of the fathers' houses and said to them, we want to build with you, for we worship your God, just as you do. And we've been sacrificing to him ever since the days of Esarhaddon, king of Assyria, who brought us here. This is referring to the Samaritans. But Zerubbabel, Yeshua, and the rest of the heads of the fathers' houses in Israel said to them, you have nothing to do with us in building the house to our God. We alone will build to the Lord, the God of Israel, just as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, has commanded us. So what do you think the Samaritans did? Oh, okay, see ya. No. It says, then the people of the land discouraged the people of Judah. They made them afraid to build. They bribed counselors against them to frustrate their purpose all the days of Cyrus, king of Persia, even until the reign of Darius, king of Persia. They say Cyrus revoked the permission to build the temple after he had said it was. And others say they frustrated the purposes so they couldn't get done. So by the 3rd year of Cyrus, Daniel, seeing the temple has been stopped, they're not rebuilding it. So he's mourning for 3 weeks trying to find out what is going on. I thought Cyrus, king of Persia, was on our side. How come things aren't getting done? Now, how many of you know it was God's will that the temple be built? He told Isaiah several centuries before, Cyrus is the man that's going to do it. Well, guess what? The prince of Persia, and I'm talking about the spiritual prince of Persia, doesn't want the temple rebuilt. And how many of you know today, who's modern Persia? Iran. And we're having problems with Iran, okay? And believe me, they're the religious zealot in Islam, and they don't want a temple to be rebuilt either. So let's look at Daniel. Go back to chapter 10, verse 5 through 8. Daniel lifts up his eyes, and behold, there is a man clothed in linen. When you hear the word linen and the man clothed in linen, what role do you think this person has? A priest. He has a belt of fine gold from Uphaz around his waist. His body was like beryl, his face like the appearance of lightning. His eyes were like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and the sound of his words like the sound of a multitude. Can you imagine a voice that is like the roar of the ocean as it is speaking? And Daniel says, I alone saw the vision. The other guys that were with me didn't see the vision, but a great trembling fell upon them, and they fled to hide themselves. So I was left alone, and I saw this great vision, and no strength was left in me. My radiant appearance was fearfully changed, and I retained no strength. Who do you think this man clothed in linen with eyes like flaming torches and arms and legs like bronze might have been? Yeshua. Well, let's look at Revelation. Let's look at what John sees in chapter 1. Well, let's going to combine verse 12 and 15. John turns to see the voice that was speaking to me, and turning, I saw a menorah, 7 golden lampstands. And in the midst of the lampstand is one like to who? The Son of Man. And look at this. He is clothed with a long robe, has a golden sash around his chest. The hairs of his head were white like wool, like snow. And here it is. He sees the same thing. His eyes were like flames of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze, refined in a furnace. And his voice was like the roar of many waters. Who do you think that was? That was Yeshua. As a matter of fact, what's fascinating, I mean, can you imagine to hear a voice like that? I think when he calls down from heaven, hello, do you hear me now? People are going to hear. Look at Ezekiel 1, 26 to 28. Ezekiel also has a vision, and he sees on the top of the arch, which was over their heads, was the form of a king's throne, like a sapphire stone, and on the form of the seat was the form of a man seated on it on high. I wonder if that might be the Messiah. And I saw it colored like electrum, with the look of fire in it, and around it going up from what seemed to be the middle of his body. And going down from what seemed to be the middle of his body, I saw what was like fire. And there was a bright light shining all around him, like the rainbow in the clouds on a day of rain. So was light shining around him. And this is what the glory of the Lord was like. And when I saw it, I hit my nose on the ground. And the voice of one talking came into my ears. Isn't that amazing how parallel all of these are? And I believe Yeshua is the menorah. Because remember, the tabernacle on earth is patterned after the one in heaven. There's a menorah in heaven. Who's the light of the world? Yeshua. And this is why it had to be kept burning, as we talked about this morning, because the light, and Yeshua is the light of the world, is never to go out. So look at what happens. Then I heard the sound of what? Man, underline that, circle that. Daniel says, I heard the sound of his words. And as I heard the sound of what? His words, I fell on my face. He had a busted nose by now, falling on his face constantly. In a deep sleep with my face to the ground. And behold, a hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. Can you just see him on his hands and knees, just trying to get up? And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly loved, understand the words that I speak to you, and stand up, for now I have been sent to you. And when he had spoken this word to me, I stood up, but I'm still trembling. And then he said to me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before your God, your words have been heard, and now I've come because of your words. Think about this. His words sent John on his face. When the Messiah spoke with the loud roar of waters, Daniel's on his face. And yet, even though his words make Daniel tremble, he says, I came because of your words. And for the last 3 weeks, I've been trying to make a connection and get a hold of you because of your words. And then listen, Daniel 10, verse 13 and 14. The prince of the kingdom of Persia had withstood me for how many days? And how long was he fasting and praying? His words. And now we believe this is the Messiah. He's battling the prince of Persia. And it says, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. For I was left there with the kings of Persia and came to make you understand what is to happen to your people. And who are Daniel's people? The Jews. He is from Judah even. Okay. And it says here, in the latter days, for the vision is for days to come. Now, why would Yeshua need help? It would have been no problem, but he wants to partner with you. He was waiting for an intercessor. He was waiting to hear someone's words that I want to partner with you. Because Abba, as your dad, wants to work with his children. It is no problem for him to do it, but he wants to participate with you, and he's waiting to hear from you. He did not respond until he heard Daniel's words. Daniel was amazed at the angel's words and the voices. Well, that's all cool, but God says, I am waiting, and I will not act till I hear from you. To me, this is mind-blowing. Look at the prophetic times we're living in. Right now, God is waiting to hear from you. He's going to wait. He wants to hear from somebody. And if he doesn't hear from you, he'll hear from someone else. So my question is, why not you? Why not you? Why can't you be the Daniel in this generation? And guess what? We're coming up upon Nisan. And this big battle with Persia was during the month of Nisan. And I believe in patterns that some year, could it be this year, that just as a heavenly battle is going on up there, one comes down on earth. I will bet my bottom dollar you're going to see a problem with Iran some year during the month of Nisan. That's why this battle was taking place, because Passover is huge, for heaven's sake, everybody. That's the pattern. This is the divine appointments. So I really believe that this Passover, maybe there are some people that might fast. Who knows? But I tell you what, God is waiting to hear from you before he does things. He wants to hear from us. So look at Daniel 10, 15 through 17. When he had spoken to me according to these words, I turned my face to the ground and I was mute. I couldn't speak. And behold, one in the likeness of the children of man touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spoke, and I said to him who stood before me, Oh, my Lord, by reason of the vision, pains have come upon me. I retain no strength. How can my Lord's servant talk with my Lord? For now no strength remains in me, and no breath is even left in me. And so look at verse 15, or verse 18 through 20. Again, one having the appearance of a man touched me. And what did he do? Do you see why Daniel 8 and Daniel 11 go together? Okay, at the end of the Daniel 8, he has no strength. He can barely get up. He's sick. And now all of a sudden, here he is. And look at this. He said, O man greatly loved, fear not, peace be with you. Be strong and of a good courage. What do we say at the end of every book of the Torah? Kazak, Kazak, be neat, Kazak, be strong, may we all be strengthened. This is what Moses said to Joshua before he passed. This is what God said to Joshua, be strong and of a good courage. This is what the people said to Joshua, be strong and of a good courage. And here we are, and we see, be strong and of a good courage. And as he spoke to me, I was strengthened. And said, let my Lord speak, for you have strengthened me. And then he said, you know why I've come to you? But now I will return to fight against the prince of Persia. And when I go out, behold, the prince of Greece will come. Kazak, Vinet, Kazak. I think it's fascinating is in the heavenly realm, he's fighting the prince of Persia. And who historically comes after Persia? Greece. Alexander the Great. That's why he said, when I'm done, the prince of Greece will come. Okay, historically, this has all already happened. But you look at the patterns. We have to follow the patterns. And one of the things that's fascinating to me is this big fight with Persia or Iran is during the month of Nisan. And there will be a transition after Iran is gone from the scene. Now look at Daniel 10:21. It says, but I will tell you what is inscribed in the book of what? What's the word for truth? Emet. That's the book of truth. There is none who contends by my side against these except Michael, your prince. I think that is amazing. Here, Michael, he is the one who's fighting beside the Lord against the prince of Persia. Now, here we are in Daniel 9:25 through 27. Know therefore and understand from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem. Now, it's not talking the temple here. Now it's talking the city. Until Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks, which is how many weeks? 69 weeks, okay. The street will be built again and the wall, even in troublous times. We know that happened. That's what Herod did. And after the 62 weeks will Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. So at the end, not in the middle of a week, at the end of a week, Messiah is cut off. And then it says, and we know that happened in 30 AD. And then the people of the prince, now we know Titus came and destroyed the city, but Titus didn't want to do that really, but the people that his soldiers did. They'll come and destroy the city and the sanctuary, which we know has already happened. And the end thereof shall be with the flood. To the end of the war, desolations are determined. And we know there's a 40-year gap there from the time Messiah was cut off to when it was destroyed. So we know there's gaps in verses. And then it says he'll confirm the covenant with many for 1 week or 7 years. And in the midst of the week, he'll cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. For the overspreading of abominations, he'll make it desolate, even till the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Okay, so that says that in the middle of a week, if he causes the sacrifices and oblations to cease, that means sacrifices and oblations have to be going on. Okay, which is why people believe in a 7-year tribulation, and in the middle of the tribulation, the temple will be, they may not even build a big temple. It could just be a sacrificial system. We don't know to the extent, but I know with the Temple Institute, a lot of it is pretty much ready to go at a moment's notice. Okay, now let's jump over to Daniel 12, 1 through 4, since we were talking about Michael anyway in Daniel 10. We see Michael introduced on the scene, and Michael will stand up, the great prince which stands for the children of your people, and there will be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time, look at this, your people will be delivered. Everyone that is found written in what? Which book? I tell you what, that book of truth. Many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. This is referring to Rosh Hashanah, guys. Some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. But look at this. There's going to be some that are wise. They're going to shine as the brightness of the firmament. Those that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. And then he says, but you, Daniel, for now, why don't you shut up the words, seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many will run to and fro, and knowledge will be increased. I believe that may be referring to secular knowledge, which is the times we're living in now. But I think more than that, it's referring to biblical knowledge and an understanding of the times. As a matter of fact, going back to the time of trouble and your people will be delivered, look at Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 6 and 7. Ask now and see whether man travails with child. Why do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness? Alas, that day is great. There's none like it. It is even the time of what? But he shall be saved out of it. Israel is going to be saved out of this time of trouble. Now, in that book I showed you, which was written by Orthodox Jews, I think it fascinating that they say this time of trouble refers to a time of extreme lawlessness. And how about when the judges are lawless? The Supreme Court judges are lawless. I mean, it's pretty bad when the people are lawless, but what about when the politicians are lawless and the judges are lawless? We are living in these times. And they're referred to as the birth pangs of the Messiah. Now again, let's go back and look at Leviticus 16, verse 3 and 4 to confirm something. It says, in this way, Aaron, I think this is so cool how this section of Daniel ties into the Torah portion we were just reading. But it says here, in this way, Aaron will come into the holy place with a bull from the herd for a sin offering, a ram for burnt offering. And look at this. He will put on the holy linen coat and shall have on the linen undergarment on his body. He shall tie the linen sash around his waist and wear the linen turban. And these are the holy garments. So when Daniel sees this man clothed in linen, this man is what? Priest, and if it's Yeshua, it's going to be the high priest in his linen garments. With that understanding now, let's go back to Daniel 12, verse 5 through 7. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, 2 others are standing, one on this bank of the stream and one on that bank of the stream. Okay, so you got this stream or this river, and you have an angel on one side, and you got an angel on the other side of the river. And then look at this. It says, and someone said to the man who is clothed in linen, who is above the waters of the stream. So you got an angel on this side of the river, an angel on this side of the river, and there's a man hovering above the river. Okay? Clothed in linen. Now look at this. This man clothed in linen that's above the river, he raises his right hand and his left hand toward heaven, and he swears by him who lives forever. Now, imagine this. Here's this man who is above the stream, and it says he raises his right hand and his left hand. And he's swearing. And we can't help but think of a court. You raise your right hand, and here he's raising his left hand. But I want to give you another meaning. As this priest, he's raising his right hand and his left hand. And what is, it's like the priestly blessing. This is the letter Shin for Shaddai. This is El-Shaddai who is above the waters. And he says it'll be a time, times, and a half a time. Now listen. And that when the shattering of the power of the holy people come to an end, all these things would be finished. So all the things are not finished until the power of the holy people becomes shattered. Did everyone see that? Listen to this now. Here we come to Deuteronomy 32:36, which is the Song of Moses, which is the revelation of the Torah, talking about end times. And it says, the Lord will vindicate his people. He will have compassion on his servants when he sees their power is gone and there's none remaining bond or free. That is like a direct quote from what we just read in Daniel. When the shattering of the holy people are gone, come to an end, that's when everything would be finished. And here in Deuteronomy, the Lord will vindicate his people, have compassion on his servants when he sees their power is gone. Look at Revelation. This is chapter 10, verse 1 through 6. I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, a rainbow on his head. His face were as it were the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. He has in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the earth. He cries with a loud voice as when a lion roars. Who is this? This is Yeshua. And when he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. And when the 7 thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying, seal it up. Seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered. Don't write them. And the angel which I saw stand on the sea and on the earth lifted up his hand toward heaven. Isn't that interesting? Kind of like what we were just reading. And the angel can mean messenger. It doesn't have to mean angel. And the angel which I saw stand on the sea and on the earth lifted up his hand to heaven and swore by him that lives forever and ever, who created heaven, the things that are there on the earth, the things that are therein in the sea, the things that are therein, that there should be time no longer. This is it. And I think the fact he's got his feet on both the sea and the earth is saying he is Lord of all. This is the King of Kings. And guess what? Time's up. And when time is up, time is up. How many remember in school when you had a time test and when the thing, put your pencils down? That means you got to put your pencils down. There is no more. Now look at Daniel 12, 8 through 13. I heard, but I did not understand. And I said, oh my Lord, what is going to be the outcome of all this? And he said, go your way, Daniel, for the words are what? Shut up and sealed until the time of the end. How many believe we're at the time of the end? That means an opening is about to be happen, and knowledge will be increased. And it says, many will purify themselves and make themselves white and be refined. But look at this. The wicked are going to continue to act wickedly. None of the wicked are going to understand, but those who are wise will understand. From the time that the regular burnt offering is taken away and the abomination that makes desolate is set up shall be 1290. Blessed is he who waits and arrives at the 1335, but go your way to the end, and you will rest and stand in your allotted place at the end of days. Do you know there is an allotted place waiting for you? There is an allotted place waiting for you. I think what's interesting is we read sometimes 1260, sometimes 1290. Another place we read that it's a time, a times, and a half a time. Right? Well, when it says a time, times, and a half a time, it could be 1260 or 1290. Depends if there's a second month of Dar 2 thrown in. So a time, times, and a half a time could refer to 1260, but it also could refer to 1290 if you have an Adar 2. Now here's the other thing that I found interesting. When you look at the 1260, the 1290, and the 1335, if the 1260 is right in the middle of the Feast of Tabernacles, when did Yeshua go up in John 7 to the Feast of Tabernacles? It was in the midst of the feast. If you go to the middle of the Feast of Tabernacles and count that as the 1260, so that would be, okay, Tishri 15, Tabernacles begin. Okay, let's say Tishri 17 is the 1260. If you add 30 days to 1290 from Tishri 17, that takes you to Heshvan 17, which is the day of Noah's flood. And it will be like the days of Noah, Heshvan 17. And then if you add the 45 days from Heshvan 17, that takes you to the 3rd of Tevet, the last day of Hanukkah. And so I find it very fascinating that you can tie the 1260, the 1290, the 1335 from the middle of Sukkot to the day of Noah's flood to the last day of Hanukkah. Just interesting thought. Okay, but now let's jump to Revelation chapter 22. Look at verse 8 through 13. I, John, saw these things, and I heard them, and when I had heard and seen, I fell down to worship before the feet of the angel which showed me these things. And then he said to me, don't do this. I'm your fellow servant, and of your brethren the prophets, and of them which keep the sayings of this book. Now look at this. Worship God. And then he says to me, what? Don't seal. Don't seal the sayings of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. And look how this parallels the book of Daniel. It says, he that is unjust will be unjust still. He that which is filthy, let him be filthy still. Him that is righteous, let him be righteous still. He that is holy, let him be holy still. That's just what we just got done reading in the book of Daniel. And then get a load of this. You look at Revelation. We're still in Revelation 22, 8 through 13. Look at the end of this verse in Revelation. What does he say? Behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according as his work shall be. I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Okay, it says, behold, I'm coming quickly. I've got a reward to give everyone according as his work shall be. Now, when we think, what does that mean? What do we think that means? He's going to reward us according to our works. Is that right? But it's wrong. How do I know it's wrong? He's quoting Isaiah. So let's go back and see how Isaiah phrases it. It says, this is Isaiah 62, 10 through 12. Go through the gates. Prepare ye the way of the people. I think it's interesting. It's not prepare ye the way of the Lord. Now it's prepare ye the way of the people. Cast up the highway. Gather out the stones. Lift up a standard for the people. Behold, the Lord has proclaimed to the end of the world. Say you to the daughter of Zion, and here comes the quotation. Behold, your salvation cometh. What's the Hebrew word for salvation? Yeshua. Behold, I'm coming. And in Revelation, my reward is with me. And what do we see here in Isaiah? His reward is with him. And his work before him. And they shall call them the holy people, the redeemed of the Lord. And you shall be called sought out, a city not forsaken. So think about this. It's not according to your works, but it's according to his work in you. It's according as his work shall be. When it says his in Revelation there, according as his work shall be, it's his work in you, not your works. What is happening is the trophy that the Son sets at his Father's feet is you. And it's my work that I've done in you. We are going to be rewarded not so much for our works because they're not our works, it's his works he's done through us. And so the question is, your reward is based on how much you've obeyed and submitted yourself to the Lord for him to work in you. It's not your works. It's his work through you. Cain was celebrating his work. Abel was celebrating his work. You following me? And when we come and show, here's what I've done for you, God. And I don't want to see that. I want to see what I've done through you. This is mind-blowing to me. Look at Ephesians 2:10. You are his workmanship, created in Messiah Yeshua to good works, which God before ordained that we should walk in them. You are his work that he will present to the Father, and your reward will be based on how much you allowed him to work in you and with you and through you. That's a whole nother way of looking at this. Because if we're building with wood, hay, and stubble, what is Yeshua going to show the Father? If you're building with gold, silver, precious stones, because it's not for our glory, it's for his glory. So we need to quit building. That's when he looks to see if you're out of plumb. Are you out of plumb? Are you building the house for you, or are you building the house through me, for me? I mean, this is amazing. This is why you have to connect. There's over 600 verses in the Tanakh that Revelation is referring to. And if you don't make the connection, you're not going to make the connection. So there's the book of Daniel for you guys.